Good evening, everyone. We're going to start in just a few minutes, just about 5 minutes after 6, to allow everyone to join us. Thank you for joining us. Thanks. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. We're going to wait till about 5 minutes after 6 to get started so that we can allow everyone to join us this evening. Thanks. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to wait another couple minutes to allow some folks to join us. So give us until about 5 after 6, and then we'll get started. Thanks. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Sarah Peralta, and I'm the Public Information and Marketing Program Manager for the Office of Police Oversight. Tonight, we'll review OPO's work and data from the last quarter, which will be April to June 2024. Now we'll go over our agenda. So here's our agenda for this evening. First, we'll provide some instructions for language access and guidelines for tonight's conversation. Next, we'll hear from our director, Gail McCant. After that, we'll learn about OPO's policy recommendations from the last quarter, April to June 2024. Next, we'll see complaints data from that same period, April to June. And finally, we'll spend some time hearing from you, taking questions from the audience. Now I'm going to hand this over to Cooper to go over our access instructions for American Sign Language and Spanish language interpretation. Take it away, Cooper.
Thank you, Sarah. Hello, everyone. My name is Cooper Thompson. I am a community engagement specialist here with the Office of Police Oversight. I'm going to share a few access instructions and housekeeping announcements. Tonight, we are offering interpretation in both American Sign Language and Spanish. All attendees should select their preferred language. If you are on a desktop, there is a globe icon at the bottom of your screen. If you click it, also, if you are on a tablet or a phone, there will be 3 dots that you can click. Then click More, Language Interpretation, then select your preferred language, and don't forget to press Done. Additionally, if you need access to closed captioning services, click the CC closed captioning icon on the bottom of your screen and click Show Subtitles. If you need any assistance, please type a message in the chat box. For tonight's meeting, we have a few ways for you to participate. The best way for you to ask questions is to use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. The Q&A function allows us to aggregate your questions and help us make sure that we answer each one. We have a chat function for you to contribute to the conversation and provide feedback throughout the meeting. Sometimes if you ask a question in the chat, it can be missed if the conversation is moving fast, so please use the Q&A if possible. We will be taking questions directly from attendees during the question and answer session at the end of our meeting. So if you would like to come off the mic and ask your question directly, we ask that you just hang in there until the end of the meeting for that Q&A session. Now I'm going to hand it back over to Sarah to go over our community agreement.
Thanks, Cooper. I'll go over our community agreements to help guide our discussion for today. So this meeting is being recorded. We will be publishing this meeting online after this evening, so that it can be shared publicly for community members to view. We will ask everyone to stay on mute while the meeting is running so that we can hear all of our presenters. As a reminder, we will be taking questions at the end of the meeting. So we ask everyone to stay within the time allotted so that we can, when you are speaking, if you are going to be participating in the Q&A, so that we can make sure to get to everyone's question. And finally, we want to remind everyone to respect each other by disagreeing respectfully. We want to ensure this is a safe space for conversation, so please engage respectfully. Now I'll hand it back to Cooper to talk a bit about the Office of Police Oversight and our work.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you all again for your participation this evening. If you are unfamiliar with the City of Austin's Office of Police Oversight, we are a separate and independent office from the Austin Police Department. Our mission is to provide impartial oversight of the Austin Police Department's conduct, practices, and policies in order to enhance accountability, inform the public, increase transparency, and create sustainable partnerships throughout the community. We do this by accepting feedback about Austin police officer conduct through both complaints and compliments.
Recording in progress.
We also conduct policy analysis and research to make recommendations to improve APD's policies and practices. We publish documents on officer discipline and conduct and engage with community members through public events and education. For some background on today's meeting, the Police Oversight Implementation Workgroup is a quarterly public meeting to review complaints data and allow community members to ask questions, while we also provide updates on current initiatives and upcoming projects. To stay informed about upcoming events, you can follow us on Facebook or Twitter, or sign up for our newsletter where we always promote our upcoming events first. Now I'd like to introduce our director, Gail McCant.
Thank you, Cooper. Good evening. I'm Gail McCant, the Director of the Office of Police Oversight. I would like to extend my warm thanks to all of you for joining us for the quarterly Police Oversight Implementation Workgroup meeting. It's truly wonderful to see all of you here. We are pleased to have this opportunity to provide you with comprehensive updates on activities of the Office of Police Oversight this quarter, which will cover April through June of this year, and to showcase the outstanding work that is being done. We are looking forward to having an engaging conversation about the information that will be presented. In order to do that, though, we want to ensure that we cover all the relevant information. So again, we kindly ask for your cooperation in holding any questions until the end of the presentation. Once again, thank you for taking the time to be here this evening. And now back to Sarah, who will provide an update on the Community Police Review Commission.
Thank you, Gail. If you are not familiar, the Community Police Review Commission is a board of the City of Austin. The commission consists of 11 community volunteers who are selected by the city manager. The CPRC is independent of and separate from the Austin Police Department. In collaboration with the city manager's office, the clerk's office, and the law department, the Office of Police Oversight is executing a process to establish the CPRC in alignment with City Code Section 215.4, which was approved by voters as part of the Austin Police Oversight Act in May 2023. Here's an overview of the timeline for establishing the commission. In October 2023, the Office of the City Auditor certified that 79 of the 82 applicants were eligible to serve on the commission as defined by the requirements set by the Austin Police Oversight Act. In April 2024, OPO sent a memo to the city manager's office explaining the commissioner selection process and providing a timeline. In June 2024, OPO emailed all of the eligible applicants to confirm their interest in serving on the commission. As directed in City Code Section 215.4, the Office of the City Auditor certified those eligible applicants. In July 2024, OPO confirmed that 31 applicants were interested in serving on the commission. The city manager received the list of interested applicants for consideration. In the meantime, OPO is working diligently to prepare the training materials for the commissioners. The Austin Police Oversight Act requires that the commissioners complete their training within 90 days of appointment. OPO will continue to report back to the mayor, council, and community about our ongoing progress. Now, Crystal Kimbrough will discuss the policy and research team's work this past quarter.
Thank you, Sarah. Good evening. My name is Crystal Kimbrough, and I'm the Policy and Research Division Manager for OPO. Research and analysis are critical to OPO's mission to enhance accountability, transparency, and fairness within the Austin Police Department. OPO's Policy and Research Division conducts academic, legal, quantitative, and qualitative research into ongoing issues related to APD. This division also synthesizes national best practices in policing to support recommendations for improving the Austin Police Department's policy, procedures, and training. Our work can come from various sources, including complaints, policy changes initiated by APD, or the city manager's office. For the months of April, May, and June, APD made a total of 21 policy changes and general orders amendments, 6 in April, 1 in May, and 14 in June. The Policy and Research Division conducted research and analysis on each APD-initiated policy change. Our team provided recommendations on several of these policies where we deemed them necessary. For the months of April, May, and June, OPO made a total of 8 recommendations on the following policies. First, we made 3 recommendations on personal appearance standards. We made 3 recommendations on taser device guidelines, and OPO made 2 recommendations on failure to maintain financial responsibility. The first policy in which OPO issued recommendations for this quarter was on personal appearance standards. OPO was interested in analyzing APD's policy regarding hairstyles in light of recent local and statewide legislation. In June of 2022, Austin City Council passed an ordinance known as the Austin Crowd Act, prohibiting any discrimination based on hairstyles commonly associated with race, ethnicity, or culture. OPO reviewed APD's current hair policy and issued recommendations for improvement to better align with state and local law. The first recommendation was for APD to remove language restricting race-based hairstyles from APD's hair policy for male sworn employees. Second recommendation was to remove language and example photos restricting race-based hairstyles from APD's hair policy for female sworn employees. And our last recommendation was to clarify APD's definition of extreme hairstyles referred to in the policy. APD responded to OPO's recommendations in agreement and has communicated their intentions to update the policy accordingly. The second policy OPO issued recommendations on was APD's taser device guidelines. APD is participating in a pilot program to update their taser equipment. The pilot program required APD to amend their taser policy. When OPO conducted research and analysis, we made the following recommendations. First, recommendation was that APD remove any reference to the Taser X26 from general orders. This is older technology that is no longer in use by APD. The second recommendation was made related to training. OPO recommended that APD specify that when an officer upgrades from a Taser 7 to a Taser 10, that additional training is required due to the differences in functionality. Last, OPO recommended that
right my way. Trying to communicate.
if a defect in Taser functionality is found, an officer must report this to a supervisor immediately. The current language in the policy did not include the verbiage immediately. APD has responded by revising its policy to align with the first 2 recommendations, omitting reference to Taser X26 and requiring additional training for officers upgrading to the Taser 10. The third policy OPO issued recommendations on was failure to maintain financial responsibility. The first recommendation was for APD to correct grammatical errors within the policy. The second was for APD to revise the policy to specify that officers must confirm proof of insurance and issue a citation if proof is not acquired. APD has responded by revising the policy to align with both of OPO's recommendations. APD corrected grammatical errors within the policy, as well as requiring officers to confirm proof of insurance and issue a citation if proof is not obtained. Last, I would like to revisit the recommendations from last quarter and update you on any progress made. Regarding the policy recommendations on off-duty law enforcement actions, APD is working to address 2 of the 3 recommendations made by OPO. Next policy, when camera system use is required, APD is working to address both of the recommendations made by OPO. Regarding the tire deflation device policy, APD is addressing all 3 recommendations made. And last, APD is working to rewrite its entire low-speed intervention policy to align with OPO's recommendations. Thank you for your time this evening. It was a pleasure to review what the Policy and Research Division has accomplished in the second quarter of this year. Our work is ongoing, and we look forward to continuing to update the community on future recommendations. I encourage you to check out our website, which has our most up-to-date recommendations posted there. Thank you for your attention, and now I'll turn it over to Daniel with our Complaints Division.
Thank you so much, Crystal. My name is Daniel Ellis. I'm the supervisor of the Complaint Division here at the Office of Police Oversight. An important aspect of our meeting today is sharing data as outlined in Resolution 99, which was approved by the City Council in September 2023. The data we will share includes information about complaints, investigations, and recommendations. I would like to briefly speak to you about the Office of Police Oversight's complaint process to better assist you and understand the steps that are taken once a community member files a complaint with our office. The first step is we receive the complaint. A community member files a complaint in person at the Office of Police Oversight, telephonically, or through our website. A community member may also file an anonymous complaint. The complaint supervisor reviews each complaint that is received and assigns it to a complaint specialist or a complaint investigator to initiate a preliminary review of the community member's complaint. The next step would be what we call a preliminary review. The complaint specialist or the complaint investigator conducts a preliminary review of every complaint that the Office of Police Oversight receives. The complaint specialist or investigator will initiate the preliminary review and contact a community member who filed the complaint within 3 business days of it being received to apprise them that we are in receipt of their complaint and obtain additional information to assist them in their preliminary review and apprise them of the Office of Police Oversight's authority and our complaint process. The preliminary review involves reviewing a police officer's body-worn cam, their patrol car dash cam video, police reports if they were generated as part of the event of the police officer interacting with the community member, obtaining video recordings from the community member, and analyzing the data to determine if the APD officer violated their general orders during their interaction with the community member. The complaint specialist or investigator will ask the community member how they would like to proceed with their complaint. The community member can choose to only have the Office of Police Oversight document their complaint, where it is always on file. They can request to speak with the police officer's supervisor or request a formal investigation of the officer. If the community member requests a formal investigation, the complaint specialist will consult with the complaint supervisor. The complaint supervisor will review all the data that the complaint investigator has reviewed and analyzed. The complaint supervisor will then assign the community member's complaint to a complaint investigator who will then initiate a preliminary investigation of the complaint. The preliminary investigator will review the complaint specialist's preliminary review again as the complaint supervisor did to again verify the information the specialist reviewed and analyzed. The preliminary investigation involves the complaint investigator contacting and conducting a detailed interview, identifying and interviewing other potential witnesses that may have witnessed what occurred between the community member and the police officer. The complaint investigator will prepare a detailed report and a sworn affidavit for the community member to sign. The completed preliminary investigation is then forwarded to the Police Department's Internal Affairs Division to review and initiate administrative investigation. The complaint specialist and/or investigator will provide monthly status updates to the community member as their matter is being investigated by Internal Affairs. If the community member contacts us and asks us what the status is, we will check with Internal Affairs, but we can only advise them that the matter is in progress. During the investigation, the complaint supervisor or the assigned complaint investigator will monitor and participate in the Internal Affairs administrative investigation and interview of their police officers, witnesses. We have unfettered access to any additional evidence that may be obtained during their investigation and their final investigative report. When the investigation is completed or the complaint that the community member filed is closed, we will contact the community member if there's sufficient information that they left for us to call them. We will call them and tell them that the Internal Affairs Division has completed their investigation in the matter and provide them with information how to obtain a copy of the report, and we'll also follow up with them as to the closure of their complaint by email. So again, let's cover a little about anonymous complaints. Again, as previously stated, the community member may file an anonymous complaint. However, the complaint process is slightly different for the community member who wants to pursue a formal complaint against a police officer but wants to remain anonymous, in that the community member's identity will remain anonymous on all OPO, Office of Police Oversight documentation. The complaint supervisor will review the complaint and assign it to a complaint specialist. Again, the complaint specialist will conduct their preliminary review, analyze the data they gather, and consult with the complaint supervisor. The preliminary is review, as with each complaint, regardless if the complainant wants to be identified in this process or if they want to remain anonymous. The complaint supervisor, again, will review all the information and then assign the complaint to a complaint investigator. Again, the complaint investigator will initiate their preliminary investigation, which again involves contacting and interviewing the complainant, identifying and interviewing all potential witnesses, obtaining additional information to support the community member's complaint. The complaint investigator will prepare a detailed report and an affidavit for the community member to sign. Investigators from the APD's Internal Affairs Division will briefly meet with the community members to verify their identity and take possession of the signed affidavit to initiate their administrative investigation. And that's the slight difference is that they can remain anonymous throughout this process. And there are two members of the Internal Affairs Division. They will just come up and review the affidavit that is prepared, witness the signature, then they will take that affidavit back to their office along with the information we've gathered to initiate their investigation. Again, when they begin their investigation, a representative from the Office of Police Oversight will monitor and participate in the Police Department's Internal Affairs Division's investigation from the onset to its conclusion. Now, I would like to present some data relating to complaints and accommodations from April 24 through June 24. And we'll begin with the complaints, the compliments, and the contacts. And let me give a brief definition. A complaint is a verbal or written communication alleging that an officer acted improperly and may have violated any law, policy, rule, or agreement governing the actions of any police officer. Let's talk about what is a compliment or a commendation. These are referred to as a thank you or a compliment. Accommodations are positive feedback from a community member for the officers. A community member contacts the Office of Police Oversight in person, by telephone, through our website about their interaction with an APD police officer and how they address and resolve their situation or assisted them. Let's talk about some of the data from April to June. In April, the Office of Police Oversight received 80 complaints or concerns. We also received 114 compliments. We had a total of 194 contacts in April. In May, we received 82 complaints or concerns, 14 compliments, for total contacts of 96. In June, we received 72 complaints or concerns, 6 compliments for a total of 78. Next, I'd like to review some data regarding the complaints tracked from April to June 24. But first, let me again explain the definitions of the data that was tracked. Let's talk again slightly about a preliminary review. The preliminary review involves reviewing a police officer's body-worn cam, patrol car video dash cam, police reports, if one was generated, obtaining video recordings from the community member, and analyzing the data to determine if the APD police officer violated their general orders during the interaction with the community member. Let's talk a little about a sworn affidavit. So an affidavit is a sworn statement that has been notarized. The state of Texas Local Government Code, Chapter 143, requires a sworn statement in order for internal affairs to question one of their police officers. What cases are recommended for investigation by the Police Department's Internal Affairs Division? The Office of Police Oversight forwards all requests for formal investigations to their Internal Affairs Division that are supported by or without a sworn affidavit based on the severity of the allegation. There are times that a community member wants to pursue a formal complaint against a police officer, and they are not comfortable with coming in and doing an affidavit. It's the same that sometimes we'll receive a complaint from a citizen and they only want a supervisor to contact them. But based on the review by the complaint specialist, the complaint investigators, and the complaint supervisors, we believe that the complaint, based on its face value and maybe talking to the community member, warrants this matter to be forwarded to the Internal Affairs. And we will forward it to the Internal Affairs for them to look into this, the same as we would do as with a sworn affidavit. Let's talk about what complaints are recommended for full investigation by APD's Internal Affairs Division. APD Internal Affairs has conducted an investigation on all external formal complaints that were submitted by the Office of Police Oversight to them from April to June 24. The numbers that you will see only includes external complaints or those originating from the community. The police department provided this data, which was also confirmed by the Office of Police Oversight. There are occasions when the Office of Police Oversight is unable to conduct a preliminary review or investigation, or APD's Internal Affairs Division is unable to pursue administrative investigation because there is insufficient information to identify the event or incident that the community member is talking about, or the identity of the APD police officers involved in the event or incident, or the complaint is about another city department or a law enforcement agency other than the Austin Police Department. The Office of Police Oversight can only accept complaints against Austin Police Department sworn police officers. Now, here's a new data we've been tracking. Officers that have resigned pending proposed disciplinary action. This is a new metric that we are reporting to you as the community. Resign prior to proposed disciplinary action being imposed by the chief. We are reporting this data out so the community members understand more about the police department's disciplinary process. So let me review the data with you today. In April, the Office of Police Oversight conducted 80 preliminary reviews. We obtained 3 affidavits. We recommended 10 for full investigation by Internal Affairs. And again, a representative, a complaint investigator, or the supervisor from the beginning to the end of the investigation will participate in that investigation. The matters that have been investigated by Internal Affairs have been 7 in April. 1 matter is still pending. Resigned in lieu prior to disciplinary action being imposed, we had none in April. In May, the Office of Police Oversight conducted 82 preliminary reviews, obtained and submitted 4 affidavits, recommended for full internal affairs investigations, 4. Investigated by Internal Affairs, 2. Pending still at this date investigations, 2. We did not have any officers resign prior to the disciplinary action being imposed. In June, the Office of Police Oversight conducted 72 preliminary reviews, obtained and submitted 7 sworn affidavits. We recommended 15 matters for a full internal affairs investigation. To this date, 10 have been conducted by Internal Affairs. 4 matters are still pending. And we have 1 officer that resigned while disciplinary against that officer was pending and not imposed. Let me take a brief moment to walk you through the police department's complaint classification as to how they are classified. The complaint classifications provide more insight into the nature of a complaint. With Class A, as you can see, being used to identify the most serious policy violation. Class D is used to categorize complaints for which there was no known policy violation. Let me review the data with each of you this evening. Well, I will start in April again. In April, there were no matters that were classified as Class A. There were 2 that were classified as B, 1 is Class C, and 2 of the matters were there were 13 matters that were classified as D. Complaints that could not be further investigated, there were none. In May, we had no Class A's. In B, again, for May, none. 1 Class C in May. We had 2 Class D's, and there were 3 matters that could be further investigated. In June, Class A, 0. Class B, 0. Class C is 1. Class D, not a policy violation, 8. And complaints again that could not be further investigated, we had 3. Let me review this data here, overview. This last set of data shows how many anonymous complaints the Office of Police Oversight received from April to June 24, and recommendations made to the Chief of Police regarding discipline by the Office of Police Oversight. But let's talk about anonymous complaints that we received. Anonymous concern, again, means that the identity of the complaint is not recorded by the city. Community members can anonymously submit concerns about their interaction with an AP officer online. You do not have to provide any contact information. The city may be limited in what it can do with that information if the complainant does not verify their information or the statement under oath. Let's talk again about anonymous accommodations. Yes, there are community members that do contact us that want to provide information about a police officer and the way they interacted with them, to handle their situation and assist them in another manner. Again, as with anonymous concerns, a community member can submit their compliment anonymously regarding their positive interaction they had with a police officer. Let's talk a little about disciplinary recommendations made to the chief of police here at Austin by the Office of Police Oversight from our director. A disciplinary recommendation is when the director of the Office of Police Oversight makes non-binding written disciplinary recommendations to the chief of police on critical incidents or administrative investigations. The complaint division staff has been involved in these investigations, monitored, and participated in. Let's talk about anonymous. In April, there were 15 anonymous recommendations or complaints. Again, concerns. Let's talk about disciplinary recommendations made to the chief. There were none in April. In May, we had a total of 7 anonymous. In May, the Office of Police Oversight made 4 recommendations on disciplinary action to the chief of police. In June, we had 7 anonymous that came to us, and the Office of Police Oversight, through the director of the Office of Police Oversight, made 2 disciplinary recommendations to the chief of police.
Thank you, Daniel. I know that was quite a bit of information to take in, and I see some questions popping up in the chat. So we're going to open the form for questions. As a reminder, you can drop your question to the chat. You can also raise your hand and request to be unmuted so you can ask your question aloud. In order to provide everyone with the opportunity to speak, we ask that you do not go over 2 minutes when asking your question. We will do our best to get to everyone's questions, but we are watching the clock and we want to respect your time and wrap up by 7:30. I'm going to take the first question I saw in the chat because that one came a little bit ahead of everyone. And then I see we have one person with their hand up, Lauren Benya. So let me start with George's question. I see that he has a question about the content on our website. The question is, why did OPO delete officer misconduct reports on the OPO website? Actually, George, I think there might be misunderstanding. We actually have not deleted anything from our website. We've been limited in what we can publish, and we're happy to answer any questions about that because of really is related to being out of contract. But if you see something missing from our website, please do let me know. I'm the person who maintains our website. So if there's a link that's broken or a document that you think should be on there that's missing, please do let me know. It's something I will need to fix. So yeah, we have not removed any documents from our website to date. So I hope that addresses your question. I'm going to hop over to Lauren and take her question. Lauren, will you come off mute?
Hi, guys. I just want to say thank you. You did a fantastic job. My name is Lauren Pena. I'm a precinct chair. I live downtown in East Austin. I've noticed a substantial increase in drug use and dealing in the area, and several of my constituents have raised concerns stating that they made multiple reports without any action being taken. So my question is there anyone within the Office of Police Oversight tracking complaints related to drug activity in specific areas? And if so, how is that data being used to address those issues? Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Let me clarify your question. Are the complaints being made to OPO or the complaints are being made to APD?
So both. And so like I said, they've been telling me that they've made complaints both ways and they haven't seen any action taken. And again, it's just been increasing in this area over time. And I worry that if we don't get it under control, it's going to get out of control even more.
And again, to clarify, the complaints that they're sending to OPO are related to something APD is doing or not doing?
Not responding to their complaints about all of the drug dealing and things like that.
I see. Thank you for clarifying, Lauren. I'm going to let Daniel and Gail hop in to talk more about any incoming complaints.
So sure, I appreciate. I can answer that. So every complaint that we receive, if there's sufficient contact information, we will reach out to the complainant. Now, it sounds like what you're telling us about is a community concern about the drug trafficking in the neighborhood and the people that you serve. So what we do with those who receive, if there's not a policy violation involving a particular officer, we'll forward it down to the police department's internal affairs division, who is like the liaison throughout the department with the Office of Police Oversight, and they will notify the appropriate person if there's sufficient information to identify who may be involved. But if it doesn't involve a specific officer not doing his or her job, it's forwarded down, number one, as a community concern.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your information.
You're very welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Lauren. I'm going to hop over to the next question I see in the chat. And just a reminder, if you'd like to come off the mic, all you have to do is raise your hand and we'll get you in the queue. I see it's from Nellie Ramirez. Thanks, Nellie, for coming out. Her question is this. I see that in the step-by-step OPO recommended, in the step-by-step, I guess the step-by-step slide. Oh, Nellie, do you want to just ask your question off the mic? I see your hand up. I'm letting her catch up. 1 sec.
Yep, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Perfect. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, Nellie. Thank you.
Yeah, I just to clarify the question. So in the slide that you guys had with the step by step, it seemed like OPO's recommendation in all of the cases is simply to recommend to the police chief that it's a forward basically to internal affairs for additional investigation. At what point, if any, is the OPO offering the recommendation for discipline in these cases? Because the way you framed the slide, it made it seem like you guys weren't recommending discipline. You're only recommending that they be sent to IA.
No, ma'am. So every formal investigation, when a community member wants to pursue a formal investigation, we will initiate a preliminary investigation, reach out to that community member, conduct a detailed interview of them and or their witness, obtain additional information. We then forward it to the internal affairs. Once we have the affidavit, or if it's severe enough, we will still, and we're concerned, we'll still forward it to internal affairs and they will investigate it. Either one of my investigators or myself will participate in that investigation from the beginning to the end. When that investigation is concluded and they substantiate that there has been a policy violation and they classify it, at that point, we will draft what we call a recommendation for disciplinary action in accordance with the general orders and their discipline matrix. We will consult with our director, Ms. Gail McCant, and Ms. McCant will also review the full investigative report. If there's any body cam footage, the director McCant is debriefed on it. We show her the recommendations. Ms. McCant concurs or recommends other disciplinary action. At that point, a documentation is prepared, and based on the classification of the offense, it is actually forwarded to the chief of police saying, we recommend this discipline based on the investigation that we participated in. So first there's an investigation, and at the conclusion of the investigation, then that's when the OPO starts making their recommendation based on that investigation and the findings.
Then I have a very strong suggestion.
Sure.
The way you guys are framing your slides makes it seem like you guys are doing intake for IA.
So,
and if that is not the case, that needs to be clarified much more forcefully, because it sounds, the way it's framed now, it definitely, it's framed as the OPO is functioning as an intake office for APD's IA department. So
I understand your concern, and I appreciate your comments. But as with the Police Oversight Act, we can, prior to that, we didn't have the authority to conduct a preliminary investigation. So what we are doing, and since this has been implemented, and since they started a complaint division here at the Office of Police Oversight, each and every formal investigation that someone would like to pursue, and based on the information we are gathering in the preliminary investigation, they are actually investigating them. But we don't have the authority to actually investigate the police officers. That's the job of internal affairs. But once we do that preliminary investigation and gather more details for them and able to do their investigation, that's when one of our investigators or the supervisors assigned there to actually participate in that investigation to make sure it is a fair and a partial process, and they are entertaining all the evidence that we have gathered and provided to them in their investigation.
Okay. I will, you guys can move on. I have lots, I have lots more questions on that, but that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
But I think it's important to note that there is some initial intake. And so we do that initial intake, which provides for us some guidance in terms of what our next steps are. And so that initial intake will help us determine the preliminary review, help us determine whether we need to do a preliminary investigation, determine whether or not we have a complaint that we don't have jurisdiction over. That preliminary information helps us decide whether that's just the community's concern or is that something that needs to go to a supervisor. So you are on point in terms of there is some initial intake, but that initial intake is for us, for the Office of Police Oversight, and not necessarily for IA.
Okay.
Thanks, Nellie. And again, if we have time, I encourage you to raise your hand again, ask any additional questions, and that's open to anyone. If anyone else has questions, please raise your hand. And if we have time, we'll make sure everyone gets another opportunity to ask. I'm going to hop back into the chat, and I see that there's a question from Tom Downey, and it is related to affidavits. So once an affidavit is signed, isn't anonymity lost? So I think this is about the anonymous complaints and the affidavits. So Gail and Daniel, or maybe just Daniel, do you want to talk more about that?
Sure. I'd be happy to answer his question. So if you want to remain anonymous, once the affidavit is signed, your name's not on there. So that's why we have people come over and witness it. We have one of our notaries there that notarize it, that you're testing that the information is true and correct. But your name is not on the affidavit. It's not on the report of interview that the complaint investigator prepares when they contact you to get the information. Your name is not on there. It is then hand carried to internal affairs, and they proceed with the investigation. But your name is not disclosed after that in any way. You will remain anonymous. And that's why our investigator will reach out to you to conduct a detailed interview so they have sufficient information that they can provide to the police department to aid them in this investigation.
Thanks.
You're very welcome, sir.
Thanks, Tom. I see another question from George. The question is, I think it's about when we don't have enough information to move a complaint forward. So if there is insufficient information to investigate a complaint, why doesn't OPO get more info out of APD?
So during the if there is insufficient evidence or information to move forward, and a lot of times we have complaints that come in and there's an incorrect phone number, the email doesn't work, there's no date as to when this incident occurred or even the identity of the police officers. We cannot question police officers at all. The only one that can question a Austin police officer is a police officer with a sworn affidavit in an investigation. And there are times that, you know, if there is insufficient information when a complaint comes in and there's a phone number and it's a working phone number, our complaint specialist reaches out to them to get as much information as they can. And they will still conduct a preliminary review, even if there's a location and a date and time, and see if they can actually find it. Because again, we have unfettered access to their databases. And if we can find sufficient information on it, and even though it's anonymous, but we can find it and review the body cam, and we see some type of misconduct or violation of general orders, we can still forward that down to internal affairs, and they will look at that matter.
Thank you, Daniel.
You're welcome, Sarah.
Thanks. That it looks like I don't see any additional questions in the chat. Was there anyone else who wanted to raise their hand and come off the mic to ask a question? We'll give just everyone another minute or two. Oh, hey, Nellie, go ahead.
I just had a question about how the how the Office of Police Oversight is pivoting now that the court has issued their decision on the G file, and that the city can no longer legally maintain the G file. I was hoping that you guys could speak to that.
Great question. Gil will answer that one for us.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Nellie. The city manager is actively implementing procedures to ensure full compliance with the ruling. OPO, with the support of our city manager, we're committed to, providing documentation, making documentation accessible. We anticipate that there will be a need for an increase in resources to effectively handle the substantial volume of documents we'll be required to process and publish on our website. So we are in communications with the city manager's office related to this. We have identified for the city manager what OPO believes are our needs to move forward, and part of that is increasing our staffing levels as well as addressing any technology concerns we may have based on the large amount of data OPO will be hosting on its site. There is going to be some collaboration with, of course, the community and communications and technology team to address some upgrades we'll need to technology, as well as the human resources department as it relates to staffing needs. So we are in communications with the city manager. The city manager is actively implementing procedures to ensure full compliance with the ruling.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much, Nellie. We also have a question about, it looks like we have a question about the CPRC.
Recording stopped.
Oh. I think something happened to our recording, Lindsay.
You're good to go. I think someone was recording individually on their own laptop, but I think we're good to go.
I see. Well, sorry about that interruption. We did get a question from somebody about the CPRC. The question is when we are selecting the 11 commissioners. So actually, OPO does not select the commissioners for the CPRC. The city manager does. And so I'll let Gail talk a little bit more about the CPRC.
Thank you for that question. Yeah, the CPRC, for sure, this is a priority for the city manager. He is in the process of review as we discussed in our last community meeting. The CPRC applicants have been confirmed their interest in being on this commission, and we've moved forward for selection for the commissions to the city manager's office, and the city manager is in the process of reviewing. OPO is preparing the training for the commission once this commission is stood up, and again, there federal regulations on how files can be handled. So we want to ensure we're working with the commissioners so they can execute their responsibilities successfully. But at this time, we move to that, I think it's the third or fourth level of the process in which we have confirmed the interest and moved those selections to the city manager, and then the city manager is in the process of reviewing. Really don't have a current timeline on when the commissioners will be selected, but just know this is a priority for the city manager, and he has that process that he's reviewing at this time.
Thank you, Gail. I want to just do another call for questions. If you'd like to drop something in the chat or raise your hand if you have any questions. I'll give everyone a minute to pull their thoughts together. Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Ramirez.
I can ask questions for hours if you sit with me for hours, and you know that.
We appreciate all your great questions. And so I thank you so much for asking questions. And again, anyone else who has questions, please
Of
feel free to
course.
chime in. Thank you. Go ahead, Nellie.
It's just a simple, I think it's a yes or no, does the new ruling on the G file status impact, in your opinion, the OPO's ability to conduct investigations independently? Because the APOA kind of was hoping, the language in the APOA was for you guys to conduct investigations independently.
That's a great question.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, may I, Director McCann?
Yes.
Nellie, I don't think at all it's going to interfere and impede in any way the investigations of the work that the Office of Police Oversight is doing in the complaint division. The investigations that we are conducting now through the complaint division versus the past with the establishers of the unit has demonstrated that the investigations are actually being reviewed and conducted by internal affairs with the staff here. And I don't believe the G file, the ruling of the court is going to affect that in any manner, or what the internal affairs is going to do when we present them with a formal investigation.
So you'll continue to require internal affairs to complete your investigations?
Well, Nellie, we cannot, it's not our job to actually investigate the police officers. It's our job under the Oversight Act to conduct that preliminary investigation, which involves the review and gather that sufficient information. But what we do when that investigation starts, we are there side by side with the internal affairs investigators. We are asking the subject officers, other officers through the internal affairs and or witnesses questions through them. And we are, again, have unfettered access to the information that is gathered during the investigation. And then again, at the conclusion of the investigation, it's substantiated that the officer may have violated policy. And once it's classed, again, we will prepare and consult with our director and present that recommendation on any disciplinary action if warranted. But it will not affect what is going on now. We will continue to conduct fair and impartial preliminary investigations and present them to the police department's internal affairs. We just, again, conduct a preliminary investigation per the Oversight Act and work with them and monitor them while they conduct their investigation of the officer.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome, ma'am.
All right, everyone. Doing another call for questions, and I'll give everyone another minute or two. Catch up. Again, if you've already asked a question, feel free to drop one in the chat or raise your hand. We do have time for additional questions, and I will wait another minute or so, and then if we don't have any other questions, we will wrap the meeting a bit early. While everyone is catching up and collecting their thoughts, I'll talk a little bit about our next meeting. Our next meeting will be in person in November. You can always learn about OPO's work, anything we publish, all of our data, and get an invite to the next meeting by signing up for our newsletter. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. It's the first thing that goes out with anything related to our work, any upcoming reports, events, or news related to our work. With that, I'm going to do one final call for questions. Feel free to drop them in the chat or raise your hand. And I'll give it a few seconds, see if anyone's composing something. All right, well, it looks like we don't have any more questions this evening. I want to thank everyone for joining us. We really appreciate your participation, and we hope that you join us for the next Police Oversight Implementation Work Group meeting in November. We will have information, time, and location shortly. If you have any additional questions, concerns, you can always contact our office. Our phone number is 512-974-9090, or you can email us at opo.outreach@austintexas.gov. You can also follow us on Twitter or Facebook. And again, I highly recommend our newsletter to keep informed about all of our work. Thank you again, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.